There's kind of another area I just wanted to kind of talk to you about, because we talked about kind of this from an IT skilled perspective. But obviously one of the things, and it's an area I'm always keen on, we can always talk about our end users being the problem, that people are the problem, people are the challenge because they're the ones who click on links or download malware or visit websites that they shouldn't. But of course, I think that they're also somebody that you can kind of weaponize in your defense if you do it properly. I know it's an area that intrigues you, kind of the people problem. So,
I find
why
people
don't we talk about that?
Yeah, of course, absolutely. I find people fascinating. So we've just talked about cybersecurity in terms of a solution being people orientated approach, and that's true right down to the individual operator. Hands on keyboard, people day to day operating in a business. It's really easy for IT managers and IT departments to look at their users and think that they are part of the problem because they are the idiots that click on the links and do all the bad stuff. And I'm sure we've all said that at some point, but that's a little unfair, especially now in the world where we have cyber criminals that are creating phishing attacks that are super sophisticated, fit the reality. I would defy anybody that, given the right set of circumstances, they wouldn't fall for some kind of attack. That is the reality, right? But what we can do with our users is instead of constantly chastising them every time they click on the links and whatever, actually, if we invest some time and effort in training them, they can become a virtual extension of your security team. Because for every phishing email that comes into the organization and the user just takes a moment, looks at it and thinks, actually, this is phishing. And instead of carrying out the actions or responding to it or whatever the cyber criminals encouraging them to do, instead they take that to IT and say, oh, I found this is phishing. That's an attack thwarted. That's an issue that's been averted. So one of the best return on investments of cybersecurity is actually training your users, because it has a relatively modest cost, but it will stop a lot of these human-orientated attacks. So using tools like Phish Threat, having training sessions, educating users in a non-patronizing way will reap huge rewards. And it will help them in their personal lives as well. I
think that thing about non-patronizing, almost kind of fearless way as well. I'm not sure fearless is quite the word I was looking for, but that idea that I think security culture is hugely important.
Oh, it is. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had a bit of a cringeworthy moment not so long ago. I was doing a presentation and we were talking about the human element. And
it wasn't for us, was it?
No, it wasn't. No. And it was the audience member that sort of made me cringe a little bit, because we were talking about this concept of being able to test our users by simulating phishing attacks. And this user stood up really enthusiastically and said, that's great, because when somebody falls for it, then I can go over to their desk and I can shout at them. I was like, no, that's not what you want at all. Security department shouldn't be the bad guys that tell you you've done wrong. And no, you're not allowed to do that. Security should be the department, which is the friendly ones who, yes, I can see that maybe you fell for that and you clicked on it, and actually let me show you that the URL was badly formed, or whatever the circumstances are. Let's learn from it so it doesn't happen again. Because what you really want your users to do is, if they have had a moment of weakness, they've clicked on the link, instead of just clamming up and shutting up about it, you actually want them to come to you and say, look, I messed up here, hands up, I messed up, I've clicked on the link, and you can start investigating it. Because if they clam up, then who knows what's happened, right? Another scenario might be, we see this all the time, and I love this little problem where users are really good at finding their own ways of solving problems, right? If they've got to do a job, then the tools are not provided for them, then they will often go to search engine of choice and go and find a method of working around it. And you end up with a situation where you've got unauthorized software, shadow IT. And actually what would be better is if the user came to IT and said, look, I'm struggling with this aspect of my job, and I think these tools might be available. How do we use those in a secure fashion?
Yeah, I mean, I'm 100% advocate for this as well. I think, that if the importance of a security culture inside of an organization is just massive, because I think without that, you end up with people reticent to adopt it. Because often a lot of things that we do as security professionals inside of an organization to better protect it, often will have some impact on the way that somebody does their day-to-day job. It's may add in another step that perhaps they haven't wanted to do, or there may be a pop-up comes up on their screen saying, you can't do this now because we've deployed security.
Yep.
But I always think is if you haven't got the buy-in from an organization of why security is important, then you get kind of pushback for any kind of adoption. Absolutely. And it just makes your life harder as a security pro.
I mean, prime example there, you're absolutely right. So rolling out multi-factor authentication, right? So we all know that passwords are bad. right? And that passwords can be broken easily. So the obvious mitigation to that is you start rolling out multi-factor authentication everywhere. And then you get your users kicking off because you've made it more difficult. And now they've got to carry a token with them, or they've got to have the phone with them and put the PIN code in. But rather than be draconian and go at them and say, you need to go and do this, this edict handed down from above. Instead, it would be much better to go to your users and say, passwords are a problem. We all know cybersecurity is an issue. We have rolled out this because it is much more difficult for a crim to impersonate you if you've got to put this code in. So yes, we appreciate this is more of a challenge, but we thank you for making the organization more secure as a result. And you're right, you get buy-in. People are like, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think that investment is as good as any investment in a security tool. I often think that security tools we put in place are obviously essential because actually as people we just can't keep up. Mm-hmm. But you'll often end up having to buy more security tools if you don't do that piece of work that says, here's a culture of security, we're educating people, we're encouraging them, we're making part of our security effort. They understand why security is important, mm-hmm. and they do their piece to be kind of that human firewall, that human level of protection. So I think it's a hugely valuable point.
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, the best security is built on the trilogy of people, process, and technology, and no one aspect is more important or better at dealing with cybersecurity than another. They only work together. Conversely, if one of those things isn't in place, the rest of it falls down.
Yeah, agreed. So, John, look, this has been great. Thanks for spending some time and chatting with us on this CTO Insights video. If people want to kind of find out some more about you and some of the stuff, because you do podcasts, you present, you write quite a lot. Mm-hmm. Where's a good place for people to find you?
The best one is LinkedIn. It's probably the single source of what I'm up to and the activities that I'm doing. If you want to hear more about some of my insights in the industry, then I do have a podcast on my own, which is a Million Questions to Ask podcast. So you can check it out from there. A couple of other things that are useful. So State Ransomware Report we talked about, that's available from the Sophos website. It's free, readily available to download. There's also the Active Adversary report as well, which talks a bit more about cybersecurity and cybercriminal approaches and techniques. And then there's the incident response guide as well, which again is free from the Sophos website, which helps organizations just to get a bit of a structure about their incident response plan. So those are all really useful resources to take away.
Well, they're great. And I'll make sure they go in the show notes with these videos. So, but for now, John, look, thanks for joining me. Really appreciate your time. And thanks for watching. And do look out for more CTO Insights videos coming soon.